Ready to collapse time, crush limitations, and turn potential into reality? This is a journey through real lessons from those who've walked the path before you. Welcome to Layers of Leadership, hosted by Dr. Michael Marion Jr.
Welcome to Layers of Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Michael Marion, and I have the honor and pleasure to be here with a person I will call a friend and a mentor, Gordon Fowler of Threefold Communications.
Yeah,
Man,
thanks for having me on. Like, this is
yeah.
good. Big time now, right?
Hey, just trying something different. stepping my toe in the creative space.
Love that.
Wow. So, born in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. Mm-hmm. I think I had no idea you were born in New Zealand.
I had a weird upbringing, like a lovely upbringing, but weird. My dad is Australian.
Okay.
I was born in New Zealand. My mom's American. And then I was raised in South America. So I didn't come to the U.S. till I was like 17.
You'd already had a full life experience.
I was like, I've seen it. Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And so you've been in Sacramento for how long now?
20 years.
20
Came
years.
here in 2004.
Okay.
So the longest I've ever lived everywhere. So definitely home.
Definitely. I think I'm with you as well.
Yeah.
But 35 years in marketing and communication and strategy, and you've played across multiple fields: government, politics, nonprofit, entrepreneurial space. You've worked with Fortune 500 companies.
Yep.
You've worked with education in my space.
Yeah.
Like, you have been killing it for a while.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Been a good run so far.
A hell of a run.
Yeah.
You've been on the executive committees for Sac Metro Chamber, board of directors, Sacramento Region Community Foundation, great work there, Community Health Works, and then Impact Foundry.
Yep.
Foundry. I want to hear more about that. Your big thing, you inspire, you connect, you elevate people to be their greatest potential, and I've seen it since I've known you.
Yeah,
like, that's
awesome.
what you do.
Yeah, I love it.
Man. And one of the things, and I want to definitely dive into Threefold Communication, but you have also produced some talent out of there.
Yeah.
Like, you've developed them and they've went on to flourish and do their own things. I don't know what's in the water at Threefold Communications, but I need to come drink some more of that.
Yeah, come on down. I call it, so lovingly, I call them my Threefold alum, right? Because we've got a network out here after being here for 20 years. And what I love is, Threefold hires people that, number one, are excellent at what they do.
Yes.
But just as important, they need to love this community.
Yeah.
So when you go through the interview process with Threefold, we're not just drilling down on your skill set, because that just sets the baseline.
Right.
We're really looking at, what do you love about this community? How are you involved in this community? How have you given to this community? How have you received from this community? What is this region all about? And we spend a lot of time on that, because what I've found is people that care about their community are excellent team members.
Yeah.
And they know how to multitask, because they're doing their job and they're being in the community and they're volunteering and they're meeting clients' needs. Like, they're doing all of it. And so it just makes for a really excellent team member. And I think that's why when you see that, people whose time they've moved on and they've left Threefold to go take some new challenge or something big that, they want to tackle, like, we're always very encouraging of it, because we know they've got like that Threefold juice in them.
Oh my goodness.
And they're able to spread that throughout the community. So it's just been, that's the fun part.
You see it. Like, it's like a blueprint. Like, Threefold is the development incubator.
Yeah.
And that helps everybody else go on and win.
Yeah,
which
and
is
we're
awesome.
good, and we're good with that.
Yeah.
We're really good with that. If it's contributing, when I started Threefold, and certainly starting like a marketing and advertising agency, which was my background, and I had worked at, some of the big boys for that, I wanted to do something that was a little bit different.
Okay.
Because when I was in sort of the field with like these big agencies, there's this perceived arrogance that comes with it.
Oh.
And it always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because yes, we're good at what we do. Yes, we're excellent at what we do. We know our strategies. We know how to execute all that kind of stuff. But many times I would see like clients would come in and we would really kind of talk down to them because we were such the experts. And that always had rubbed, from day one, that had always kind of rubbed me the wrong, it's not my personality, and it kind of always, rubbed me the wrong way. And so I started Threefold with the mission of contributing to thriving communities. That was actually, it wasn't get rich. It wasn't like work team members to the ground. It wasn't take over the region and be the #1 brand.
Ever.
Although wouldn't mind that. But
I mean, you're kind of doing it.
You're
kind of doing it.
But it really was like, how can we contribute to thriving communities? And that's from day one, that has been our goal. It still remains our goal. That's our mission. That's how we frame everything.
Okay.
New clients come in, we're immediately looking at them like, are these mission clients or money clients? Because it's a small business. Sometimes you got to take clients that are just going to help put food on the table.
Yeah,
And we certainly recognize that. But our goal is always to have about 70% mission clients. And mission clients for us are clients that are contributing in a significant way to the community. Whether it's healthcare, and we have a lot of clients in the healthcare space, whether it's higher education, a lot of clients in the higher education space, nonprofits, public transportation, utilities, all of those contribute to make a community great.
yeah.
And we know we can't play in all arenas, so we've really focused in on those arenas where we feel as Threefolders, we can make the greatest difference in the community.
Sure. I always brag about Threefold, and I brag about you just
Appreciate
because I
that.
feel like blood, sweat, tears in that office just doing cool shit. And this is, I think, the first time I cursed on this podcast.
I love it. Let's go.
So one of the things that I learned from you, Gordon, was, and I had never heard it before outside of church, let me be very clear, is this 10% tithe that you give back to the community.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it blew my mind. I was like, whoa, why is it not everybody doing where did that come from?
I am not exactly sure where it came from. But we call it our community tithing, right?
Yeah.
That's our community tithing policy. And that is money, and it's also time.
Yes.
And the reason that we did that was I've always felt that everything that comes in is not necessarily all ours. Work hard for it, you earn it. When you keep a client or, on a project, you're working really hard for that. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily all ours. We get that because of the community's help and because of our, friends and brothers and sisters and everybody that are out in the community. The reason we have an expertise here is because someone has allowed us into their industry or into their company that we've been able to learn about it. And then we can apply that to help the next person out. And so I wanted a way that very clearly demonstrated that we were not just about receiving, we were about giving as well. And so that's where that concept came from. And I can remember once Threefold was going through this really big expansion phase, and I was sitting at this table, and I had attorneys there and accountants there, our CPA or our auditors, or there's all these sort of people that we worked with, but weren't necessarily in Threefold.
Okay.
And we were having this conversation, and they were just like, the numbers aren't going to work out. This is just, it's just not going to work out.
Giving away too much
You're
money.
giving away too much money. Yes. You need to be putting this back into the company for investment. And I remember sort of thinking there and then really doubling down on it and saying, actually, this is the investment. We're not investing in a bank account. We're investing in our long-term sustainability. So I call it healthy selfish. It's healthy, right, to be able to do it. It's healthy to be able to contribute back out. It's healthy to be generous and to be giving. But it's also kind of selfish because in my respect, when I think about it, it's really about this long-term sustainability because you can't just be in the community. You have to be of the community
100%.
and for the community.
100%.
And that's not just us as individuals or those of us that are, going to church or participating in, nonprofits or it's also business and particularly small business, right? That's, in my mind, small business is where it's all at.
Oh, 100%.
Right? We employ the most people. We are the ones.
It's the heartbeat.
It's the heartbeat. We can change more quickly. We can move stuff around. We can pivot more quickly. And everybody has their place, right? But small business has this really unique, really cool place where we get to play.
Yeah. I wish everybody took on that kind of approach and concept. Hey, 10% of our time and earnings is going to go back to the community. I think it would make a huge difference.
This episode is brought to you by Systems to Solutions. Think smarter, work better. Welcome to Systems to Solutions.
Well, you know what's really cool too is as people have left, as a threefold alum have gone out and gone into the community, we can see this type of effort being reinvested back in. Now, I don't know if it's 10% of their bank account, but certainly like really heavily, deeply involved in the community. So Clay Nutting at Cannon, like a really, really good example, worked at Threefold for several years.
Hold up, Clay worked at Threefold?
Clay worked
Get
at
out of
Threefold.
here.
No, he was really instrumental in us building up that nonprofit division.
Know that.
Yeah. And when he sort of came to me and he's like, hey, I've got this idea, because he first started with Lowbrow. Yeah. And it really was his passion. Like, you know, and that's the number one thing.
Motown Mondays.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was really into it. And I remember having this conversation with him and I was like, dude, then use our space. Just work from here, use our rooms, like brainstorm, do whatever you want. Let's get this started off right. And I was like, and the only thing that I ask back of that is that you build a business that is centered on being generous to the community. And he's done that in spades.
Oh, heck yeah.
And you had Scott Moak on. You know, Scott worked at Threefold as well.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, Scott worked at Threefold.
I think I need a job at Threefold.
There you go. But he's great, right? Because he, again, like he's just so generous with the community and so kind and, you know, deliberate and intentional with what he gives back as well. So that's the cool part, because we've started this little movement,
Gordon, you're doing
that's
something.
underground, certainly, but that I think is really, again, for the long term, is going to be really good.
You're doing something over there. Like I said, it's something in the water or the beer or something. I can't.
Yeah, or the gin. Let's be real.
So let's take it back, Gordon.
Sure.
Let's take it back. Who was young Gordon? Like, who were you? What was
Dude,
it
that was
like?
a hot mess, I think.
Most of us were.
Most of us were, right. You know, I was always this kid that was, I never felt like I fit in exactly. Socially, I did.
Okay.
Right? Like I could fit in, but I always saw things differently.
Okay.
And when you're young, it's hard to be able to express that. So it's going to come out in ways that, you know, could be positive, but many times are negative, right?
Sure.
You're going to be frustrated. You're going to lash out, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I remember like very, very clearly, it was probably like 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
I had taken some test. And I'm competitive, so I always did well in school, but I had done poorly on this test. And so the teacher was kind of alarmed by it and called my parents in. And my parents were old school, right? Like a B, you didn't try hard enough. A C, you're not leaving the house for 2 months, like that kind of thing.
2 months.
You know, like it was hardcore. And so we had this like parent-teacher conference, and the teacher was like, "Well, just really disappointed in the results of these questions. Clearly, you didn't study for this." And she kind of went on, and I'd gotten a pretty low grade. I was probably not passing, and so she was sort of talking about that, and I was just sitting there the whole time. And so finally, my dad was like, "Well, Gordon, like, what's going on? Like, did you just blow this off? Sort of, what was it?" And I was like, "I studied. She just asked the wrong questions."
You did.
I did,
really?
and I was like in 4th grade or 5th grade, and I really believed it, because when I had studied, I was like, "Oh, you know." And that was kind of who young Gordon was. So I always saw the world from a little bit of a different perspective. And always sort of had a different angle. Which is why it's great to be in marketing or advertising, right? Because that's the angle you got to look
what you
for.
want.
Yeah. But that really was me growing up a lot. I grew up in a super philanthropic family. Very, very dedicated to wherever we were living, like very involved in the community.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. Even growing up and living overseas, like my dad never had us live in like, you know, housing that was provided, right? It was always in the community. Like we always lived in the neighborhood, went to neighborhood schools, like that kind of thing. And so I think that's where part of that, because that was what was natural to me then as I grew up. And when I came to the U.S., it is where I really, for the first time, was able to kind of see that not everybody is built that way. And again, then I had my perspective on it. Sadly, was never shy about sharing that.
What? Not you.
Yeah, but that was kind of what it was all about. I think I was pretty curious as a kid. I was a really avid reader, really involved in lots of different things. Had really unique experiences as a child. One of my first jobs was being a translator for Sally Struthers when she came down through some, or like World Vision or Compassion or one of those things. And I was like this 15-year-old kid, and they wanted a cheap translator that could translate while she did like her South America tour, and that was me. And
Get out of here.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's like a unique experience,
That's
right?
very unique.
Yeah, it was interesting.
That's wild.
And I think it was where I sort of started getting my love or seeing the value of like PR and marketing and comms, because, you know, the red light on that camera would go on and she was on. It's just amazing. And then it would go off and she'd be like, it would take these children back. You know, it's like,
take them back.
Take them back. And Photoshop.
They ruined the shot.
Photo op's over. Let's go.
I love it. So yeah, let's talk about that. So you arrived to the U.S. when you're 17 years old. You've been traveling. You've seen the world. What was that like?
It was really good and somewhat interesting. So I had been at a private boarding school in Bolivia, of all places, because that's where a lot of kids were sent from in South America for expats. Really good, really high-level school. You know, our PE classes were like archery and horseback. It was one of those kind of schools. And then I actually was kicked out. Or as my mother says, it's not that you were kicked out. It's just that they asked you to never, ever, ever come back again.
Okay, I need details. I need a little bit. Just give me a little.
But then, so my dad was like, hey, if that's how you're going to play the game, then you can go play the game. You got to move up to the U.S. So I had to come up to the U.S. for my senior year of high school. And I went to the second largest public high school in the state of New Jersey, which is a little bit of a market shift.
Huge.
From this little private boarding school in Jersey. Yeah. And so it was really interesting, but I learned very quickly, and I think growing up in so many places and with the kind of family I had, I learned to somewhat be a chameleon, right? So I could kind of make myself fit in, and I always had been pretty observant about how to do that. But it was rough the first couple of weeks getting used to it. I had a map to go to my classes. My U.S. history class was taught by like the wrestling coach, and he immediately hated me the moment I walked in the door. You know, it was just like learning to navigate those things and understanding how to do it. But I ended up making some great friendships and ended up being a really good year. But it definitely was a culture shock.
Heck yeah.
A huge culture shock.
No question.
Second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere to New Jersey, which I'm not sure where their ranking is. But yeah.
So, all right. So we graduate from high school, and then what was next? What'd you do? Did you go back to South America?
No, I went to college. So I went to school in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
A little school, Go Hoyas. It was a really great experience, and I loved it. And the reason I fit in, the reason I liked it is it's really is an international school.
Heck yeah!
And it's in an international city.
I love Georgetown.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like great learning. I mean, I just don't know very many other schools where you could go into class and the substitute teacher would be, you know, Gene Kirkpatrick, who is, you know, a friend of the prof, or you know, things like that. And fortunately, I was able to really recognize what opportunities were there and was pretty serious about it.
That's good.
Right, because I was just like, wow, this is really a huge gift that I'm going to this school, and look at kind of all the benefit that I have when it sort of comes to learning.
I spoke at Georgetown last year.
Oh, did you?
I did, and I was walking through some of the halls and the buildings, and you see like all these dignitaries, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I grew up loving Georgetown, not for the academics.
Yeah.
For Coach John Thompson, that was just, as an inner city kid, that was the coach, that was the place.
Yeah.
And and funny enough, one of my mentors to this day went there, Dr. Lori White. She's a president now, and loved her time at phenomenal. So tell me about your experience there.
It was great. I ended up being a Russian history major.
Really?
Because you know, it's interesting because I went to school in the 80s there, right?
Okay.
So 81 through 85. I graduated in 85.
That's a hell of a time to be in DC.
Oh, that's great. I mean, we won the NCAA. That was right?
Yes.
So that was kind of cool. But I never was really planned, and I never have been like super strategic about what my next opportunity is going to be.
Really?
I think I'm good at identifying it when it appears and being prepared for it, but I've never been super calculated about that.
Okay.
And I can see that really kind of started in my college career.
Okay.
I had taken a class by accident because I wasn't paying attention. I'd gotten into this upper division Russian history course. And when I was in it about 2 weeks in, I was like, okay, like this is serious and I'm way behind.
Oh.
And I wasn't sure how to navigate the system because it's much different then. I didn't just get to go online. Like you had to go down to an office and fill out a form and talk to somebody. And I was like, I'm just gonna like buckle down and really make this work. Wow. And so that was my freshman year, first semester. And at the end of it, the prof called me in, and I did well in the class, and I very much enjoyed it.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I had roommates, and they're like stressing out over, they're taking like business classes, and one was like a psych major, and I was like, I'm reading books and writing my opinion. Like, just was never that stressful to me. It was work, but it wasn't stressful. It was enjoyable. And he asked me to be his TA, and he said, hey, I recognize that you probably only have a semester here, but if you like another semester, like if you want to go for it. Like, I'd love if you were my TA next semester. And I was like, I'm a freshman. And he was like, I wouldn't have let you into the class if you were as a freshman. This is an upper division class. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have taken this class if I'd known it was an upper division details,
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And so he asked me to be his TA, which I did.
Okay.
Kind of all the way throughout when I was there, and just ended up taking courses that I really loved. And so my senior year, he was kind of like, well, one more class and you can have a major in this and you can come minor in speech comm if that's what you want to do. And I was like, sounds like a deal. Let's do it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you do that, you graduate, and then what's next?
I had done an internship on the Hill when I was there, as many people. I mean, you're in that town, you've got to do that.
Everybody spent some time on the
Hill. And then I had been on the debate team at Georgetown, which was a really great experience because they're serious about their debate.
That's prestigious.
Again, I had never debated in high school, had zero exposure to it. But, I think chance favors the prepared. And I was taking a sort of speech class and was giving a speech, and the debate coach was walking by in the hall and heard me give this speech, and then he popped in for the speech. And then people, the way Georgetown works a lot, is very Socratic, right? So you give the speech, and then people provide their input, and then you sort of talk about it and sort of come to an agreement, and then the next person gets up. And that's how that sort of rhetoric class was going. And he was at the back this whole time. And when I went to walk out, he was like, hey, have you ever thought about debate? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't even really know what that is. And so he kind of explained it, and I was like, not really. He's like, well, we have scholarships. I was like, I'll do it.
Right now.
Like, I'm signing up for the Georgetown choir, debate, like whatever. Like, give me scholarship money. Yeah, this school is a lot. It was expensive back in the day, right?
Heck
Probably
yeah,
still is.
Expensive.
And so he was able to get me a debate scholarship, and they paired me with the #1 debate champion in America that was recruited specifically to Georgetown out of high school. Wow. And she was like no joke. Like, she was hardcore and serious and just the exact opposite of me. And she knew all the strategy. And all I knew, like, is I was like, and I was really clear. I was like, I don't even know how to prep for debate. You're gonna have to teach me from scratch. But I've got your back. You'll be the lead person. I got your back. Like, we'll figure this out.
Wow.
So we ended up doing really well. We ended up being ranked in like the top 5 in the nation.
That's huge.
We went to Cambridge to debate, like exhibition debate. Like, a Russian debate team came and debated us.
Serious.
It was serious, and it was, again, such great training because it's under pressure. You have to be able to like articulate your view clearly, cleanly. You've got to be able to defend your view. You've got to be able to, really present, sort of poke holes in other people's arguments and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, the reason I tell this story is because then it was time to sort of getting some internships. And so she and I were sort of talking about it, and I was like, I don't want to compete with you when it comes to getting these internships. So let's divide it up.
Okay.
So where do you want to go, and where am I going to go? And then we don't have to compete against each other.
Good strategy.
Because I knew I would lose every single time, and I wasn't about that life. So essentially, she's like, we wanted to work in the Senate.
Okay.
And so she was like, okay, I'll take Republicans, you take Democrats. And I was like, that works just perfectly.
It was that simple.
It was that simple.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. So I ended up getting an internship.
Okay.
And it was a really great internship for the then ranking minority member on Senate Foreign Affairs, which was fantastic.
Wow. Your
And
background.
yeah, Senate Foreign Relations. And this is a really, really good experience. Again, I knew enough just to keep my mouth shut and just work hard and learn. Because I was like, not everybody gets this opportunity. And I am not about proving what I know, because I knew, fortunately, I knew very, very little.
Wow.
So I was like, I am going to learn as much as I can and contribute as hard as I can.
I'm looking at like the circles that you've been placed in, just from, growing up in New Zealand to Georgetown. Like the exposure that you were able to get exposed to is incredible.
Yeah.
To time on the Hill.
Yeah.
Like you were ready.
I was
You were ready for whatever was coming.
Yeah, I was ready.
Wow.
So so I had done that, and then I decided I was going to go to law school.
Okay.
And I think you probably know the story because I tell the story all the time. So I decided I was going to go to law school, and I got accepted and got a full ride scholarship, which was great, at Georgetown. And I went for one day, and I was like, oh, it's not for me. So I walked all the way out, went down to the dean's office, and I was like, I think somebody else could use this scholarship that really wants it. It ain't me, so I'm quitting on day one. And he was like, you're a quitter? And I was like, yes, I am. And I was like proud of it. Anyway, so then I sort of had a little job in between. And then I went back to the Hill, and I worked on the Hill back in that office, and it was a really phenomenal experience.
So I'm still trying to figure out, how did you get to Sacramento and working in the communication and media, especially from the Hill?
So working in that senator's office,
Okay.
I had done that for a couple of years, and he actually sat down with me and he said, you're doing a really good job, and I appreciate sort of what you do, but this job is not your passion. And he's like, let me give you an example. That was when I was working there, was when the 4 nuns in El Salvador were killed. I don't know if you remember, that was like a big deal.
I do.
And because he was ranking minority member, like we had a lot to do with that. Yeah. And he's like, take this example. The very first question you asked me is like, who do we need to message and what message do we want to get out to them? He was like, you didn't care about the policy. You didn't care about, sort of all the things that we're wrestling with. You were very focused in on the communications end. Yep. He's like, and that's good, but you start and end with that on everything. And he's like, you're going to burn out here because you don't care about the policy end of this work as much, or the legislative work around it. What you really care is about the communications. So you've got 6 months to find a job. And if you don't, I will terminate your employment here in 6 months. That's how that's going to work.
Wow. So that lit a fire, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really, really did. It really did. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to start at the very, very best and work my way down, just kind of like I'd done with my internship. Because I'm like, I handle rejection well. I really do. I'm like, okay, I guess it's not me.
On to the next.
You might be making a bad decision, but that's
I'm good with it.
I'm going to move on. And I ended up getting a job at Saatchi & Saatchi in New York. So largest ad agency in the world at that point in time. Great agency, really great, training ground.
Okay.
And that was my first choice, and I was able to get it. And again, when I stepped into it, I realized how little I knew, and I was like, I'm just going to absorb and contribute, absorb and
Another
contribute,
jewel.
right?
Yep.
That's just what I'm going to do, because I am I don't know what
not
these
there
people
yet.
know.
Yeah.
And it was the industry for me. Loved it from the moment I was set foot in it. We'd have these like situations. I'd be working with this team, and everybody'd be so stressed out, and I'd be like, this is pressure, people. This isn't stress. Like, pressure means we just got to perform. Stress is like something else going on. And in my mind, and I always say this to my team and to people that we're working with, there's a big difference between pressure and stress. Make sure that you identify it.
I love it.
Pressure is too much to do and too little time with high stakes. That's pressure.
Yes.
And quite frankly, that's all of our jobs. So learn how to deal with pressure.
Yeah.
Stress it's out of your control because you don't have the time, the tools or the team to be able to make it happen. I had time, tools, and team, so this was just pressure.
It's just pressure.
So everybody would be all sort of stressed out, and I'd be like, this is just a lot of pressure. I'm not stressed out. I literally had people like throwing up in the trash can while they were going in for a big presentation. And I was like,
We got this.
we
Let's go.
put in the work. Now, I would feel stressed if we hadn't put in the work. And I determined pretty early on, I don't like feeling stressed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But I think you dropped a couple jewels there, like the difference between like pressure and stress, and that's huge. And then preparation, right, is big. And going into an environment prepared is so big.
It's huge. And, you know, again, when I'm talking with the team, you know, they hear this podcast, they're going to know because I say it over and over and over again. There's like 3 things I really, really care about with our team. Well, lots of things I care about. Sure. 3 things I really focus on: work hard, work smart, and work ahead.
Like it.
Right? Pretty simple. We don't have to be super fit. You know, I'm no PhD like you are, so I got to keep it down. I got to keep it down to the ground. But it's really, it really is kind of, you know, kind of, so just work hard, like put in the time, do the right thing, and put in the time, and then work smart, like use the skills and ability and experience and think through what you're working on, like be smart about it, and that's work smart. And work ahead, like, you know, I was not one of those guys in college that could pull an all-nighter. Like that doesn't work with me. I'm not good, like last minute trying to scramble. I mean, I can be creative with that, but I never feel good about it. Yeah. But if I can be prepared and proactive, I'm feeling great. And that just makes a difference in your mental outlook, right? Like you're prepared. So pretty simple.
Yeah. So I was thinking about when we met each other.
Yeah, I was actually trying to figure that out.
And so I know clearly it was absolutely through Metro Edge.
Yeah, I think so.
It was absolutely through there, because I think up until that point, I hadn't been very active with the chamber.
Yeah.
At that point yet.
Yep.
And so, and I remember coming in threefold, and I was announced to the leadership council.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And Emily Cameron was the chair, and I was the vice chair. But to go back, you are one of the brainchilds of Metro Edge, which is a leadership organization in the Sacramento region that has done phenomenal things. Yeah. So give me some history on that.
Yeah. Well, I never was eligible for Metro Edge, right? Because I was a
You're
lot
part of
older.
Metro Smooth, though.
I was Metro Smooth. Way beyond Metro Edge. So
shout out to Erica Taylor.
That's
on that
right.
one.
That's an Erica Taylor shout out. But I was sort of appointed as the yearbook advisor, is probably the best way to say it. Because Metro Edge, it was in its second year. It had done okay on year 1, but hadn't really gained the traction that they were looking for. And, you know, being the father of 3 boys, the healthy, selfish part that I talk about is I wanted to ensure that we were creating an environment in this region that would keep and retain and attract young professionals, right? Because that was back in the day, right? So think back 20 some years. That was back in the day where we were just having brain drain everywhere, and you know, people would graduate from Sac State and want to bolt, or UC Davis and want to bolt, or you know, Los Rios and out. Like the dream was to go to the Bay Area, go to LA, or go to the East Coast, right? Or Portland back in the day. And and I wanted to ensure that didn't happen. And my kids were younger then, but I remember just thinking, like, if we don't get something going, like these kids are going to go, because I can already tell, like they're ambitious and they're talented and they're creative and they want to experience like experiences. And if we're just a sleepy government town, that's not going to happen. Not to say that we were that, because that's when Sacramento is really kind of having sort of this riot, you know, there's like this a lot of excitement around Sacramento and what Sacramento could offer. And I just wanted to ensure that there are opportunities for young professionals with that. So I volunteered to go over and sort of be this yearbook advisor, and I did it for 6 or 7 years. And it's such a great experience. One, I mean, that's how I got to meet you and so many other young professionals that really now are the ones that are sort of calling the landscape, right?
Which is crazy.
It's incredible.
Because I remember you and others having conversations with us talking about one day you will be the leaders in this region. And like now we're at that point, like you just said. Like you think about some of the largest companies in the region, Like there's absolutely some of us that are around the table, if not in the C-suite.
Right. Exactly right. And the beautiful thing about that is there was Metro Edge, but that's when there was also NELP, and then the SAC Asian Chambers started their Catalyst program, and then Roseville started their Ignite program for young professionals. And so really you could see this movement with young professionals being recognized as ideally that's who we wanted to pour into so that we could really develop this core of not just amazing, excellent professionals, but professionals that love this region and we're going to give back to it.
And I want to say thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because you exposed us to a lot. And it was still a lot of barriers in which a lot of us weren't allowed, in rooms we weren't allowed to go in. But it was individuals like you, Gordon, that helped open the door for people like me coming out of NELP, going into, Metro Edge, all of those things where it was, and let me just say it was a lot of folks of color, a lot of women that were just trying to figure it out. And we kept on hitting the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
But you were one of those people that helped us kick down the door and opened us and helped us get exposed to a lot of these different groups. And so thank you for that.
No, thank you for saying that. 'Cause it's a good feeling, right? And it's also, I won't say it makes me emotional, but it just, I feel it in my heart because now I get to sit with you having these conversations, right? I knew you when,
You knew me.
before you were even married, I think,
No,
right? And then
no
with your
kids,
first
nothing.
kid, I remember with the birth of your first kid and all that kind of stuff. And then now we're sitting here and that's why this region is so good, right?
Yes.
It's so networked. I mean, I often get asked, why are you in Sacramento? Because I came to Sacramento not knowing a single person.
Me either.
Right? And for me, I knew I wanted to leave the East Coast and move someplace else. And so I had identified, and I knew I didn't want to live in an A city anymore because I'd lived in DC, I'd lived in New York. I wanted to live in a B city that chose to be a B city and was cool with being a B city. Yeah. There's no disrespect there. It is what it is. So I looked at San Diego, Sacramento, and Spokane.
Wow.
And so when I looked at San Diego, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work for me because I'm going to want to be on the beach.
I was.
Right? I was like, that is not going to be successful. My oldest son got accepted at school down there, and I was like, don't do it.
I know great school down there.
Let's be
clear.
Yes, let's be clear. A very good school. We've had conversation about that.
Absolutely.
A very good school, but I was like, don't do it. That. Not in that environment because it is a beautiful place and beautiful people and you ain't gonna do what you gotta do. So I knew, and just knowing me, myself, my personality, I was like, that's not gonna work for me. And then I looked at Spokane and honestly, it was a very superficial decision, but it was cold.
It's cold.
And I was up there visiting and there were icicles. I'll never forget. I was walking sort of in there downtown and there's these icicles and an icicle fell and crashed on the street in front of me. And I was like, I could have been impaled. At any place where I have to learn how to put on snow tires, it's not going to work.
It's not for me.
So then it was Sacramento. And
just a spot. Yeah.
I often think about how opportunity brought me here. And I'm so grateful for it because in 2004 was right. I was looking at this town. I was like, these are amazing people. They live in this amazing city. They just don't know it. Yeah. So there is this lack of pride. We're almost like, oh, we're not that good. Oh, we're not LA. We're not Tahoe. We're not Napa. We're just sort of in between. And I was looking around going, I have traveled a ton and I've been to a lot of places and this place can have it going on. I think it's 100%. Really right. It's really
I love
a good
Sac.
place.
Yeah, and I'm a Portland guy, but I love Sac.
Yeah,
because I felt like I was a part of the fabric, which was cool.
Which is what you exactly were. Which again is the purpose of all those programs. Yeah. And people just have to get involved in those. To say that you've, especially now, and especially for the sort of upcoming years, it is going to be important that we are highly networked, highly unified, and highly focused on ensuring that there is opportunity and access
100%.
in this region.
Yep.
We don't have to follow a national trend. We can do it our way. And quite frankly, that's better, right?
Own it.
Own it. And Sacramento is a pioneer town. I love that. There's this pioneer spirit.
100%.
And let's do it. Like harness that and make it
Count me
happen.
in.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to close out, what's next? What do you have going on? What's the future of Gordon Fowler and all the great things you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I'll be doing this for a little while more.
Okay.
I love it. Like I
good.
love
You're
my
great at it.
I love my team. I love this community. I think that's really good. I have grandchildren now, so
I can't believe you said that. It's wild.
It's so great. So I always tell people I'm all about G&G, garden and grandchildren. I had a significant back injury and had to have surgery that was a lengthy recovery. And it was recommended to do gardening as therapy, right? Just get out and just kind of move the muscles a little bit. And I found I really liked it. And then, of course, I had to get competitive with it. And then I was like doing all this research on it. And so, like, I'm really into
a full garden.
That's a full garden. Like, Better Homes and Gardens better be calling in the next 6 months or I fail.
I'll put a call in for
That's
you.
right. So, I think for me, it'll be a little bit more balance in life.
Okay.
So raising my boys and raising my company was a very intense focus and took all of my time. Like I've always said, I can juggle 2 things really, really well. 3 things, it starts to fall apart a little bit.
Right.
So I think looking to the future for me, it gets to be a little bit more about balance and being really thoughtful about how I can continue to contribute, but it's not going to be the grind. Like we're over that hill, right?
Yeah. I love it. So recommendations, podcasts, books, anything that you would recommend for any of our viewers that say, hey, that guy, I want to be him. I want to follow his path. He's seemingly lived an incredible life. He's done it right.
I mean, there's a lot. Like I read a ton. Of course, I can barely ever remember the name of a book I've read. And I always have 3 or 4, kind of going at once. But I always tell people, like, you have got to stay learning and just, you got to keep sort of the information flow coming in. So it's easy nowadays. You can even chat GPT it and say top books in this industry, that industry.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, subscribing to this podcast, you can do it. Just search Dr. Marion, right? And
so I have 3 people now. It's moving.
That's right. Yeah,
no, my mom and my dad.
No. I was watching it earlier, which I meant to say this earlier too, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the intention behind what you're doing with this podcast, because I think not only, do we get to learn from the guests that you have on, and I think I'm friends with every single person you've had on so far that I've been able to hear.
We're networked.
We're networked, including Nicole. That was fantastic.
that was
Like
fun.
she's amazing. But I really appreciate that because it's not just these learnings that we can all pick up of. Just like has always kind of been my motto, like go in, keep your mouth shut and your ears open until you know what you're doing.
Yes.
And your podcast is a perfect opportunity to do that with the added dimension that these are all Sacramento fans.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be a fan. It is very important to be a fan and to have something that you believe in and you follow and you care about and you contribute to and you give your time and you give your energy to. So baseline, it's, obviously it needs to be your family, your faith, your job, sort of what you do, but it also needs to be your community.
Yes.
Like, how are you going to do that? So
Love it.
I follow a lot of blogs.
Okay.
I do a lot of reading, and I do a lot around Sacramento as well, right? We've got some grassroots journalism coming up. Like, check out 916 Times on Instagram. Like, they're doing a great job, like, kind of peddling their way through.
Nice.
We've got a lot of people on that are proud of this region and are pushing it and promoting it as well.
Yeah.
So stay informed. Like, information is never going to hurt you, ever. I can never think of a situation where information and education is going to hurt you.
There it is. So how can our viewers find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. If you want to see pictures of grandchildren and gardens, you can go do that. But I'm on LinkedIn. Just look up Gordon Fowler on LinkedIn. Post a lot on a blog as well. So threefoldcom.com. Sort of check that out. We just posted something up this week. And that's the way to do it, for sure.
Well, thank you, Gordon, for taking the time to spend with me. I appreciate you. And once again, thank you for everything you've done, not only for me, but for this region.
Yeah,
We appreciate
absolutely.
you.
And more to come, right?
There it is.
All right. Thanks, my friend.
It's a wrap.